Let's get the opposition perspective from that spending proposal and the southern border, Israel, Ukraine. Texas Republican Congressman Chip Roy joins us now. Congressman, thanks for being here. You know, the majority leader, Steve Scalise, has said it's dead on arrival, may not even come up. For people who say, why not just put it on the floor for a vote? If it fails, it fails. What do you say?
Well, first of all, great to be on. And my answer to that question is pretty simple. Why doesn't the Senate just put H.R. 2 on the floor for a vote? This is the kind of deal that gets cooked up behind closed doors. This is not my first rodeo as a staffer, chief of staff of Senator Ted Cruz. I was here during the Gang of Eight. I've been here through numbers of these fights. And the fact is the Senate has cooked this up behind closed doors, and they know full well it's dead on arrival here because it just perpetuates the mass migration crisis that the Biden administration has created. And look, I don't say that lightly.
Now, it does have something. Now, let me just interrupt. It does have some of H.R. 2 pieces in there. Obviously, it has other things in there. You heard Senator Sinema for a lot of that interview defending some of those portions. I just want to get to your biggest criticism of the bill as it's written. What is that?
Yeah, well, first of all, it doesn't have anything meaningful out of H.R. 2 because we put that together thoughtfully to actually stop the abuse by the executive branch to just let people come into the United States. They're using asylum and parole as, loopholes effectively, plus judge-created loopholes to dump people in the United States. And with all due respect to Senator Sinema, these provisions that they put in there, they're not going to do the job. And in fact, they're going to have $4 billion to hire a bunch of so-called asylum officers who are going to rubber stamp a whole bunch of claims up to 5,000, which if you multiply that would be up to 1.8 million. Now, I know they say, oh, these are encounters. I heard Senator Sinema say, well, they're overstating that. That's just encounters. But Mayorkas has been releasing 85% of everybody that they brought in. And the small changes they've made to asylum is not going to change that. Meanwhile, they fund $1.4 billion for the NGOs that are working in a direct relationship with the United Nations to funnel people up through Mexico. So they're not going to do anything. And by the way, they provide attorneys for unaccompanied children. Unaccompanied children don't count in the total 5,000 numbers, which means it's a magnet for cartels to keep abusing children. This is the least effective bill you could possibly put together. They know it's dead when it gets here. Democrats want this as cover for not actually doing their job. They want to be able to point to us and say, oh, they killed our great bill, but it's not a bill that the American people want because it won't work. It accepts the premise of mass migration.
Congressman, you often point, conservatives do, up on the Hill to the Border Patrol agents, the Border Patrol Union that has been very critical of administration policy. But today the Border Patrol Union, representing 19,000 agents, supported it, saying this will allow us to remove single adults expeditiously and without a lengthy judicial review, which historically has required the release of these individuals into the interior of the U.S. This alone will drop illegal border crossings nationwide and will allow a great many of our agents to get back to detecting and apprehending those who want to cross our borders illegally and evade apprehension. While not perfect, they say, the Border Act of 2024 is a step in the right direction, far better than the status quo, which is why the National Border Patrol Council endorses this bill and hopes for a quick passage. So what do you say to that?
Well, look, those guys are good friends of mine. I meet with them all the time. They're not too far, about a 3-hour drive for me to go down and visit with them. And I love them. I invited Brandon to the first State of the Union when I was a member of Congress. But here's the deal. They want every ounce of relief they can possibly get, and I understand that. But I have a job as a member of Congress not to embrace permanent law reforms, permanent legal changes that will leave our country wide open to a new mass migration model that the Democrats want us to embrace. Brandon's doing his job. I'm doing mine. I represent 750,000 Texans who love those Border Patrol agents and who wants to make sure that that number is 0, not 5,000. Unfortunately, the Senate is not going to send us a package that's actually something we can move on the House floor. We need to go back to H.R. 2. They need to take it up. We can do it in a conference committee and do our job. But we did that a year ago. They're doing this as window dressing in an election year to try to actually score points in November.
Obviously, you're not surprised to hear that Democrats in the Senate think it's the exact opposite politically. Here's Senator Chris Murphy.
It seems to me that House Republicans sort of live in this fantasy world in which there isn't another party. The only way that you pass anything is that it's bipartisan. And Republicans in the House take this my way or the highway approach, which tells me they're not interested at all in solving the problem. They're just interested in preserving immigration as an endless political cudgel that we just use in election time.
So how do you respond to that?
Well, a lot of my colleagues here on the other side of the aisle have been accusing me of hopping, to whatever President Trump says. Well, I just appreciate if they'd call down to Mar-a-Lago and tell him that after I spent all my time in Iowa in January with Governor DeSantis.
I was there. I know it. I know it very well.
So the fact of the matter is that, look, I called for impeachment of Mayorkas in 2021, like 3 years ago. I've been out in front of this saying what we need to do. This is not political for me. This is trying to get the job done for the people of Texas that I represent. Their bill doesn't do it. They're doing it as political cover to head into November. They know that's what they're doing. And now they're trying to use it in real time. But the fact is the American people see what's actually happening. This is not a bill that will stop it. It will not stop the flow. Children will get abused. Cartels will be empowered. China will be empowered. Fentanyl will continue to flow. And the Border Patrol Union, I understand that they want a little bit of relief. The best relief we can give them is to enforce our laws as they are on the books. And by the way, the president has authority right now under 212F, emergency powers, to shut it down. They don't need what...
And I asked...
Yeah,
I asked Senator Sinema about that and the executive orders. Obviously, they could enforce a lot of the laws that are on the books now. I just will end with this. You did put out a post on X saying threat on the war, debt, and open borders bill. The bill is not well intended. It's also not a border security bill. Right. It is, however, a bill designed by Democrats to boost Biden against Trump by helping Dems blame Republicans for open borders. So, listen, this is political. You're just saying it's not the solution that you want, even if your critics say, why not take a little bit of the loaf and then fight the battle and let Trump do exponentially more if he wins as president?
Well, number one, that's because, remember, the backdrop of this is $60 billion for money for Ukraine, right? We wouldn't even be having this conversation if it wasn't riding with Ukraine. The Open Borders Caucus and the War Caucus wants to move this through. But the people trying to stand up for the American people to say we need a secure border are saying, wait a minute, we passed you H.R. 2. The fact is they want us to take a moved goalpost. Just take 5,000 because now 10,000 a day is so bad. When I think you said to Senator Sinema, Jay Johnson said 1,000 a day was I don't think he said crisis, but was a real problem. And now we're going to say that a minimum of 1,400 and up to 5,000 is somehow acceptable. That is a goalpost move the American people don't want us to do. They want zero. Republicans are for zero. Democrats are for 5,000 plus.